For today's video, I'm going to show you 3 techniques for validating emails. The first one is just using regular expressions. The second one is using the Apache library RFC 822 standards for validation. The third one is the ultimate one. We're going to combine this with the key press validation that I've shown you before in the key press series, incorporating the Apache library RFC 822 standards. The Unary operator is validating the email as it's typed, turning the field pink, which indicates to the user that it's not yet valid yet. If we type in a valid email address, you can see this field would change from pink to white. Once this is invalid again, this changes again. If we submit this, it'll actually give us a message down the bottom saying this is valid email. For the Apache library RFC 822 standards, this is using a plugin to actually validate emails. Once again, if you start an email with an @ it's allowed. For both, it also allows 2 dots. It indicates again with the pink field, type in a valid email address, the field would change to white. The last of the 3 does not allow you to type invalid email address from the start. You can't enter in the @ symbol. As you can see with the key presses that are outputted down here, you can't start the email address with a dot. If you start with a valid email address and then try to press the @ symbol twice, or to put a dot either side of the @ symbol, this is not allowed because it's not a valid email address. Once you complete your email address, it'll still change to white, and you can submit this email address and it'll give you a message as well. This prevents you from typing 2 dots. Okay, let's get started with coding. Okay, in your IDE, you can use whatever IDE you want. I'm using NetBeans. Go up to File, down to New Project, select Java Event, Java Application, click Next, give it a name. I'm going to call our project JavaFX TextFormatter Validate Emails. Click on Finish. Now what we need to do is just go over into NetBeans and just create our FXML controller file, .fxml. Start a new empty, go up to File, down to Save As, browse to where you actually started the new project. Mine's under my Documents, then under NetBeans, then under the actual project name, then under the source code, then the package name. Now in here, you want to save the file, call it FXML controller, then click on Save. Okay, back over in NetBeans now. We should see this new file created. Now what we need to do is create our FXML controller.java file. On the actual package name, right click on this file, go down to New Java class, give it a file name, FXML controller, click on Finish. Now we've got all the files that we require. Now what we need to do is just paste in the code. We'll just do the main first. Okay, with these errors, we'll fix these up in a minute. Now we'll do the FXML controller. This is the main workings of our code itself. Now for the FXML controller.fxml, this is a file that's actually generated by Scene Builder. We'll just save all the project. Okay, we'll just go over into Scene Builder. Now you can see we've got everything set out that we require for this project. Now what we need to do is just fix up these errors. Okay, what we need to do is go to the project name, right click on this, left click on Properties, go to Libraries, where the module path is, click on plus, add library, add the JavaFX library. If you haven't got this set up, then watch my video on how to install and set up JavaFX 20, where I'll show you how to set this up and set this up for NetBeans so you can develop your own projects. Go down to the class path, click on the plus, down to add Java folder, browse to where you install your JavaFX. Mine's under Program Files, Java, JavaFX SDK, then under the lib folder, highlight the first one, hold down the Shift key, and then click on the last one to highlight all these libraries. Click Open. Now what we need to do is just set up our runtime. Click OK. Now most of these libraries will be sorted by now. There's just one more we need to do, which is the Apache Commons library. Go over into Google, copy this address, On the Apache Commons web page, click on the link down the bottom here where it says Commons Validator 1.7 bin.zip. Once this is downloaded, open up this zip folder, go into this folder and copy it. Go to where we installed JavaFX, mine's under C drive, Program Files, Java, then paste this folder in there. I'm going to replace mine because I've already done this before. Click on Continue to allow administrator rights. Tick all boxes if you need to. Now everything's installed. Let's go back over into NetBeans and we'll link this library to our project. Right click on our project name, go down to Properties, left click, click on Libraries. On the class path, click on the plus symbol, go down to Add Jar folder, browse to where we just pasted in the Apache Commons library. Click on Commons Validator 1.7, click Open, then click OK. Now we should have all our problems resolved and we should be able to run the project. Don't forget to hit subscribe below for more videos, and if you like all the code, subscribe also on my website. In Scene Builder, we have a text field here which has an FX ID. We have a submit button which has an on action, another text field with FX ID, submit button with on action, again another text field which is the final one, and a submit button with an on action, and an error label which has an FX ID. Over in the code, NetBeans, at the top here we just have a regular expression which has been defined, and we just have set the maximum input. Normally for email, the maximum input is typically 64. For the purpose of this exercise, I've just set it to 32. Down here, we have the regular expression submit button, where we're simply just checking that regular expression to see if it matches. If it does, we set the message label down the bottom to email valid. If it's not, we set the appropriate error message. Here I'm just outputting the submitted email. The second button, which is for the RFC 822 standard, we're actually using the Apache email validator to check this to see if it's a valid email address. And once again, just setting the appropriate labels and just outputting the output that's been submitted. The third button's just the same thing once again. Now, for the Unary operators. If you want to know more about TextFormatter and Unary operators, then watch the first part of this series where I explain this Lambda expression. Here, just returning the complete text that's been output to the text field. Here we're getting the actual user input as they type. This includes operating system paste. Here I'm just outputting the input for demo purposes. We reset the error label. Here we're just checking for a maximum length. If it exceeds that length, we deny that from happening. This will also prevent paste from coming through. Down here we're just using the regular expression to see if it matches. If it does, we set the text field to white. If it doesn't, we set it to pink. And then we return the change, allowing that input through. Here we're creating the text formatter from the Unary operator that we've created up here, and then setting that to that actual first text field for email address. The second Unary operator, we're using the Apache's 822 standards. In here, I'm just outputting the input as we go in, resetting the label again, checking for maximum input. Down here, we're calling an instance of the email validator itself to see if it's valid, and then setting the appropriate color for the actual text field. White if it's valid, pink if it's not, and then allowing the change to go through. Once again, just setting the text formatter from the Unary operator and then assigning it to the email address. Now the third one is when we implement the key event validation that I showed you in the key event validation series. In here, we need to worry about passing the empty through. The reason why, we're looking at the length of the text that comes through to get that first character. If it's a delete key and the email is still not valid, it won't allow it through and it'll return null. As in the key events series, we're using the same logic right here. First of all, we're making sure it's not the first character in the text field. Then what we're actually doing is looking ahead, the current key typed, to see that there's not an @ symbol there. If there is, we don't allow that through because that's not a valid email. And opposite here, we're just checking to make sure that the current key typed is an @ symbol, and if the key before it is a dot, then we're not allowing that through. Here we're just checking to see that the current cursor caret is not at the end of the input itself. Then we're just checking to make sure that a dot is not being placed before the @ symbol itself, and we deny that from going through. Opposite, we're just checking to make sure that it's not an @ symbol that's going before the decimal point, and then allowing it through. Here we're just checking for a combination of two @ symbols or two dots being typed in and not allowing them to come through. Here we're just checking to make sure that a dot and an @ symbol is not the first input, and if it is, we don't allow it through because that's not valid. And here we're just simply checking for the maximum length and setting the appropriate labels themselves and not allowing that character or OS paste not to go through. Down here is where we're using the Apache plugin for the email validator to check to see if it's a valid email. Then we're just setting the text field to the appropriate color, white if it's valid and pink if it's not. Down here we return the change. I've got this in a try catch. The reason is because we're actually doing some string manipulation and we're looking ahead and behind the string. Hence the reason why we're doing these checks themselves to make sure. Down here we're just setting the text formatter from that Unary operator and setting it back to the text field. And down here there's a method which will return how many times a text is found in a search string. Don't forget to hit subscribe below for more videos, and if you like all the code, subscribe also on my website.